Are you an entrepreneur or ready to become a boss? Welcome to Hawaii Boss, the business podcast made in Hawaii, where you will hear from island movers and shakers on who they are and their impact on our state. And now, step into the office of your host for Hawaii Boss, David Pettijohn.
Aloha, Hawaii Boss crew. We are now live. With us today, we've got Miguel Gonzalez, Catalyst Public Relations, Public Relations founder and president and CEO, the big boss over there. And, we've had him on before, but it's been a little bit. And so right now we're trying to figure out what's going on out in the world, what he sees, because he's on the ground hitting the pavement every day with the various companies he works with. So what are you seeing out there right now, Miguel?
Aloha, David. Thanks again for having me on. It's appreciated. You're right. I'm definitely seeing more movement. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing clients being excited about planning events. I'm seeing old plans having that being planned again. More people being more sure about what's happening, right? For a long time, most of us didn't know what was happening, where we were going to be a month from now, how the situation would be. But I'm really seeing every day. I was telling my wife just recently that every day I see a sign that we're really coming back, and it's coming back with a force. So it's very exciting.
Well, it is. And I think there's something that's out in the news today, this week, is that the vaccine, the whole safe travels thing, inter-island right now, that everyone's been sort of suffering through, back and forth, having to do all this paperwork and different things, that ends 6/15/2021. Is that right?
Today's the day. It's a momentous occasion for all of us, and frankly, one that a lot of us thought it would take a lot more time to do. And it's just, I'm glad. I personally am traveling to Kauai next week, so this couldn't have come out at a better time for us.
Right.
I'm fully vaccinated, and my wife is as well. So we're very excited about being able to travel and not having to present the test. Of course, we still have to have one for my child, but
sure,
it's a minor situation, and we will definitely take it. I'm excited that things are coming back, and I'm seeing visitors coming back to our islands as well.
Well, it's been tough. Yeah, there's a lot of, that kind of frees everybody up that maybe weren't traveling now because of all the restrictions, and they had to go figure out and get online and figure this out. But now that they can go buy a ticket and just go hop on the plane, and I'm sure in the airport, there's still a requirement for masks and all of this kind of thing and social distancing, et cetera. But as far as, having to prove that you've been tested and that you have a negative test and that you've been vaccinated and that you have to show all of this upon entry, if you're coming from Oahu to the Big Island, that's what you had to do every time. You had to wait in a big line. Last weekend, there was a line of about 200 people that were there waiting. And so everyone, I think you could see in the line, everyone was a little bit frustrated, and they were glad that today was coming, that, soon that they could just get off the plane and walk out to their car or walk out to their loved one and get picked up and head on home instead of having to sort of go through this whole strain and stress.
It has been a year that it's been unlike any other year, right? I mean, so many different things that we had to come across, so many new normals, if you will. But just the fact that to be able to just kind of move back to what we all knew as normal or something as close as possible, it's very encouraging for everyone. And, it's summertime, so I'm seeing people coming from Florida. I'm seeing people coming from New York. I mean, we don't have any international travelers yet. I mean, as you know, Hawaii has a great relationship with Japanese guests,
Mm-hmm.
Korean guests, and those particular folks from those regions are not
Mm-hmm.
coming in because maybe the vaccine distribution hasn't been as elaborate as it has been here in the U.S.
Right. A lot of those places are still under strict quarantine guidelines themselves, when folks are coming in and trying to travel there. So there's no travel from other places too, going there and stopping off in Hawaii, or, hey, I'm going to Korea. I want to have keep my vacation when they do some vacation in Hawaii. And just that flow just isn't there. Less than 1% of, what it was for, a year ago or 2 years ago.
It's minute. It's so small. And, but the one thing that has helped Hawaii so much is the fact that a lot of the mainland travelers have been choosing Hawaii as a destination. I mean, and why wouldn't you, right? If you're not sure about going abroad, but you have been itching for a vacation,
right?
In Hawaii is a perfect destination. It's still part of the U.S. and
And the cruise ships aren't running yet either, right? That's, a lot of people want to get out in the sun and the air and move. And Hawaii is sort of a great place to do that. And the weather's been great lately too. It's been, of course, Hawaii, so.
Right. We've been very lucky. We had many, many different things, from geographical to weather, like you mentioned, to the fact that it's the dollar is the currency here. It's I mean, so many great different things that have helped Hawaii recover faster than other tourist destinations, other travel destinations as well. So it's something that I'm seeing more people. I mean, I know people that were laid off or where, we're just not working. They're being called back to their works.
Sure.
So the excitement in the air is there. And obviously that's good for our economy, because we all need that, as you know.
Right. And there's still small business owners that are still trying to, rub a couple of pennies together and make something work. That's always the challenge anyway. And even in, outside of the pandemic. So, there's been some great businesses that have gone, out of business. Like restaurant down there in town near Waikiki and Ala Moana area that had to go out. And there's several, there's just several that, these staple names that we've heard, for years and years, and the owners that, were the original owners and things, it's just, too much.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And it's just, I think we're going to keep on seeing casualties of the pandemic, even after we're completely opened and everything else. There's so many people have been carrying these businesses for so long and with really no end in sight. And now that it's here, a lot of them are running out of steam. They're running out of funding. Some of them are just running out of will because it's just been so hard for them. So,
and some of them are sort of stuck in a little bit of an older model. Like, for instance, the mall situation that just came, they just came to news there that the Pearl Ridge Center, the owner files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy because there's $3.5 million in debt, and this pandemic didn't help. I mean, what malls were already having, an issue, and nothing said, nothing bad about them. I mean, it's a great mall. It's endemic of sort of, what the mall situation is, and online shopping and different things that people can get, which exploded during this pandemic, that you could order and everything online and you could still get it. And so a big shift in the market. And I think that's some of the challenges that some of these older business, I'm going to say older businesses, but maybe less flexible businesses aren't able to sort of adapt to what's happening out there.
Right. I see it all the time as well. I think ultimately, brick and mortar places like that, like malls, we're headed that way. I think the pandemic just accelerated everything else.
You see that too, like Sears. I mean, Sears was kind of, again, it's from the some sort of old model. Sears has been, kind of carrying on in this old model for so long. Everyone was going, how does Sears just keep going? That brand was so popular. But, and again, how does this relate to Hawaii? But there's, popular brands in Hawaii that, if, Hilo Hattie's, for example, used to be spread out all over, but that model isn't necessarily, people want things from Hawaii, but maybe they want different things. The matching muumuus and picture may not be exactly what folks are coming for anymore.
Well, and if people want things from Hawaii too, then all you got to do is it's only a click away. You can go to Amazon and order that and have that in a couple of days, right? And that's kind of the business model that also, you mentioned Sears, that businesses like Sears that maybe in other generations were so successful, they were not able to really just get with the times, and they become casualties of modern times and combined with a pandemic.
Right. It's definitely a challenge. So where are you seeing, some of the folks that you're working with out there, there's some that are growing in this period. Like you said, there's excitement. There's still this segment that's still trying to adapt and hasn't quite, is still trying to find their footing, but there's some that are kind of coming out of this that, really dug in when they were during the pandemic and said, let's really regroup here and let's try and reset in a new way that meets the current environmental expectations. So, what does that look like? You see that some of these restaurants are expanding to different locations. Kahala is a popular area now that seems to be expanding and growth oriented. So it just seems like there's this fluctuation from time to time in Oahu specifically about what areas are growing and things, but this seems to be a new area of Kahala.
There is. I think it's Kahala. I think it's the west side. I think it's the neighbor islands. I know Maui's definitely experiencing some of that change. I think it's a lot of business owners who really put their thinking caps and they said, how can I provide the service that I still do through a pandemic? How can I change it to be more more instant, more just that it gets acquaints with people's schedule, with people's challenges, which is really, it's the service that you're trying to provide, right? And if
Right.
that service brings that value, then obviously then you're gonna have the customers if you know how to get to them.
Well, and here's an example. The Big Island usually houses the Merry Monarch, and there was some real risk that this thing was going to be canceled.
Sure.
But events like this that people are wanting to start bringing back, that brings back in the tourism dollars and things like that. Looks like they're still having it. They're still going to have it, but they've adapted, and they've created some virtual setup to be able to so that they can share what's happening. And that was already happening anyway through different television stations, but they made it so that they limited the audience to just the halaus that are coming, and making sure that they have it segregated so that they reduce the risk of infection if folks aren't vaccinated for whatever reason. So really smart folks. Again, it's not necessarily a business, but it is a business. There's all the halaus have suffered so much. They haven't been able to do their performances. All the folks in the lay industry around all of that effort and the shows that are happening and things. So that's just restarting back up again too. So really great that these folks were able to really push that. And it must have been not hard, but the timing just seems like it worked out for them. And so congratulations for them being able to move that along.
They've done a great job and really just getting themselves more acquainted to the times. I know that last year, obviously, we weren't able to have a Merry Monarch. And I mean, obviously, for anybody who lives in Hawaii and beyond, the Merry Monarch just represents such a special time for everybody. Whether you're watching it in person or where you're just watching it on TV, it's really representative of Hawaii. It's kind of like, somebody described it to me as kind of like the Olympics of hula,
Oh yeah, these guys are serious too. I mean, these guys grow up from when they're little. I mean, there's a whole process of developing and to become a senior dancer with some of these young, and some of these young ladies, their growth process. It's a wonderful pursuit and a lot of benefit. But again, even from the different islands of Polynesia that come out too, this is a big sort of event. It's like the Little League World Series, but no, this is the big time. This is like a Super Bowl, right?
It really is. And a testament goes out to them too, because one of the things that you mentioned is the preparation that all these professionals need to go through, years of rigorous preparation, that some of the training that they do. I mean, I've seen football players or athletes, just pretty much crash out in some of their trainings because they use so much of their body, their movement, their muscles. It's quite special. So I'm very, very glad to see it come out. I'm glad that they were smart about it and that they decided to move the typical time, which was, earlier in the year to July. But it's great, and it's really going to reaffirm that we're coming back once we see the performance. Each night is so special there too.
Right.
So I'm glad that we're seeing that. And then again, that's just a sign of the bigger times, right? The economy's coming back, the visitors are coming back, more businesses
now
are
there's
open.
still some limitation from folks coming from the mainland though. We have to be at a certain vaccination rate. Looks like 70% for the safe travels to go away for folks coming from the mainland, which still requires a negative test, I believe, vaccine or proof of vaccine. So from the mainland, so we're waiting for that 70%, and who's keeping track of that? We'll find out from the governor's office and the Department of Health, and find out when we hit that 70% mark. But that sounds like that's going to free up everything to include inside restaurants, and so the masks off.
Right. So it's just pretty much going to be just the way that folks remember it. There's not going to be any restrictions, no limitations on that. Masks are not going to be required. They feel that 70% number is going to have enough of an assurance that it won't affect the population as a whole. And it's going to be more of a situation as to when we have a new strain of the flu, when we have other contagious, respiratory diseases to combat. So that's going to be that. So it's interesting. I heard Josh Green, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, who I know you have on your show, this morning on an interview with Hawaii News Now, saying that he estimates that we'll reach that 70% in 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
So not far away. It's I know there's been some hiccups with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine as well. So they were counting on those numbers as well to supplement that 70%. But nevertheless, they are having a lot of success with some of the programs that the state has installed recently,
Mhm.
more incentive programs where
Mhm.
if you can, you know, present proof of vaccination, you're automatically entered to on sweepstakes for staycations, Hawaiian miles,
Oh, I
air
got to get
miles.
on that. I missed that. Where
Yeah,
do I sign up for that?
exactly. Restaurant gift certificates. So a number of different things. You know, I know California is doing a kind of like a lottery for that. It's more like a lottery where people can sign up. Each one of them is trying to incentivize the population to do so. So, you know, it seems to be working out. So kudos to them and the Department of Health for doing that, because ultimately we're just trying to get over that hump that we can just really, really get us to that point where we can say, okay, guys, let's go back to business. Let's open it up. Let's do deals now.
Right. And so you start seeing this already, as far as people, there's jobs out there. There's jobs out there, and, trying to get people married to those jobs. It sounds like that may be close as some of these resources start running out as far as unemployment assistance. These jobs become more and more available. It's just like it's a supply and demand. The same thing that was happening with the Hawaiian host, with his supply chain, because of the pandemic was, he would, his stuff didn't come in on time. And so he'd have to wait until all of his stuff came in to make this certain batch of this certain type of candy. Same thing with, and having enough staff. Same thing over here with these, everyone wants to get back up to their full speed, but
Right.
they can't even, I've heard of a restaurant right now that, they can't even open yet because they can't get the staff and maintain the staff so they can keep a steady schedule.
And that's a problem that I've also been seeing around the islands. A lot of people, like you said, staff shortages as well. There's a lot of people who are still receiving some sort of assistance, who feel that sometimes they're making more by just receiving the assistance than to actually
Sure.
going back to work. But that's going to end soon as well, because the governor just pretty much announced that the next 2 months are going to be the last 2 months to just pretty much take care of that. And now even folks have to show proof of the fact that they're looking for jobs, that they've been searching for jobs.
Right.
So,
They put that off for a while. That used to be the big thing that you had to do for unemployment, was to make sure that you're actually looking, and that where did you put in applications, show proof that you put in applications, or how many interviews did you have. But I'm guessing that they're probably having a challenge staffing the unemployment office to help these folks in the processing of all the things. So it's a challenge, but hopefully we won't be, those, as the economy continues to grow and those different jobs continue to grow, and that we can apply them, or folks can apply to, that frees up that burden, I think, on the government. But I don't think they have a lot of money left for that anyway.
It's I think the government has been doing a good job in just kind of supplementing some of these businesses and helping them out.
Right.
Whether it's rent assistance, whether it's working directly with landlords of businesses to make sure that
it's been a pretty steady flow of those. It's been sort of used as a safety net, and you can see that in a lot of ways when people are struggling. They recently raised the income level, because cost of housing, average cost of a house right now, average family home is nearing $1 million on Oahu, over $1 million in Maui. So
Yeah.
there's got to be some, for some of these folks that are having a hard time, putting a couple of things together when something goes bad, especially their work, all of a sudden they're out of a house. So there's some real, that's a big government drain, but also, sounds like it's necessary for a time.
There's just there's been so many difficult situations, and each family has gone, I'm sure, through just difficult unknowns and different things like that. So I'm glad that there's that safety net, like you said, that for some people who really need it. Obviously that also opens up things for fraud and different things like that. But the majority of people who are there are deserving people, and I'm glad that they are getting the help that they need, because, especially if you have 4 or 5 kids and you have one breadwinner, and that breadwinner gets laid off or something else, it becomes a difficult situation, because how are you going to put food on the table?
Yeah, Hawaii, the expense is so real and so immediate. For people, when an emergency happens here, it seems more dire than other places, just because of the sheer cost of some of those things that can go wrong. But
yeah, it's amazing. It's just people can right away feel the pinch. And that's why you also see a lot of locals just going to Las Vegas, or as they call it, the ninth island, right? It's just
right.
Squeezed out by its own economy, the cost of living, that people just figured it's easier for me to spend $250,000 and buy a mansion over there
Right.
than to try to here save up money for a $900,000 small home that, that doesn't even, it's not worth it. You're paying for the land, you're paying for the place where you live.
Right. And there's money coming out of places that aren't necessarily from the local working economy. There's people investing, and, it starts to, investors are great, but there was something brought up by the, Pacific Business Journal that there was some money laundering. Somebody from a foreign country was, buying up houses and selling and sort of laundering money and different things. So there's different things that happen to the economy that, some of our local guys we can't do anything about. It's out of our hands. We have to decide if we're going to, make sure we make everybody rich by trying to, expand all of these, housing. I mean, the cost goes up, or, how do we create some affordable sort of situations for folks? That's a challenge.
That's the big question. I mean, that was a question before the pandemic.
Right.
And I think it's even been more highlighted now because you have a lot of folks with the freedom to work from anywhere around the world, right? A lot of folks from Silicon Valley who were given that sudden freedom chose to just say, you know what? I'm taking my money and I'm moving to another state since I'm able to just log on my computer every day and still do my job. So you're seeing people that are being squeezed out, and you're seeing people that are bringing that demand and saying, I'll give you $100,000 over asking price. And so I can keep that. Well, you're squeezing everybody else out because nobody else is going to be able to say, you know what, I have $100,000 extra laying around doing nothing. Right. It just doesn't work that way in this economy.
Yeah, people who are, fleeing California have got an extra couple $100,000 to, to work with. And so it's not a problem for them to drop in, oh, really, a Hawaii house, and they don't even come and live there. And then they've just priced everybody out of the scene. So it's an interesting conundrum that I think I'm not sure that we can necessarily unwind. The market, I guess they say, is supposed to fix all this stuff, but we'll see what happens. But there's people claiming that this is a little bit of a bubble.
And there's something to that as well, right? I mean, there is a bubble because there's been all this money coming out to different businesses, and what's going to happen next, right? How does this happen? Does this help us? Does this make us being complacent? I mean, that's the part that's interesting also. And I think we'll know the answer in a couple of years post-pandemic, because a lot of things a lot of pieces are going to keep on falling throughout.
Yeah, we still don't know the end of it. I mean, it's us getting back to normal, but businesses being able to operate as they used to, or businesses being able to re-enter into the market. There's big question marks out there.
Yeah, and a testament goes to people who are the real bosses, right? That's what this show is all about, right? Talking to people who are the bosses, who are out there every day, who are experiencing the hardships, they're experiencing the successes, the fruit of their hard work, all these things that we see every day. So I think it's just timely to talk about the subject and to keep on exploring it, right? There's a lot of different things that the economy of Hawaii has that are great, and there's a lot of things that they have that are not so great. Like, not the fact that a native Hawaiian cannot afford to live in his or her own land. It's definitely something that's very regrettable. It's something that doesn't seem right in my mind, and that there should be more help for folks who are, by birthright.
Right. Well, and there was recent news that there was some 80 acres given back to OHA to be able to be distributed, and the mechanism that they use for that distribution. But that seems wholly inadequate. I don't know how that process works exactly, but I know that's probably something that we'd like to discuss further, because the reality of their needs, Hawaii, those have to be considered as we go forward.
Yeah, it's something that definitely needs to be looked at as well. I mean, there's so many topics, right? I mean, the fact that the island is not self-sufficient and we depend on food from the mainland, from California, to make sure that we have enough food for everyone. All these things that just have made us look into it deeper. And I'm hoping that we really take on that challenge and really fix some of these problems, and not just keep on talking about it, because we've been talking about these problems for a decade. And we'll put a Band-Aid fix, and then that falls off, and then we talk about it more, and then we don't really do much. So it's really just taking all of us, right? Because if we have that mentality of like, why don't they fix it? Then we are they. So it's all of us are they. So why don't we all get together and figure out what's the best way to do this?
Yeah, it used to be, it's easy to complain at the, city hall, or this is what's happening or whatever, but,
Right.
We're the ones who are, responsible for, our government and for our, business activities that we do here. And we make choices and well, while some things may be legal, it may be not something that we want to do as far as, the betterment of the state or what works best long-term. And sometimes, business doesn't have the long-term outlook necessarily in Hawaii in mind, but more has the sort of the short-term gains and then how do we capitalize on our short-term gains and then maybe move on from our business endeavor in Hawaii instead of reinvesting and continuing to engage the community.
I think also businesses have a big voice in Hawaii, and the more that we express our opinions on certain policies, programs, ways that people are affected locally, then we can help shape those policies, those laws, to really do what's best for everyone, not just for a few, what's best for the general public, what's best for the greater good,
Sure.
And I think as business owners, we have more power than we think we do. I know that the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office, Mayor Rick Blangiardi, they're all very business oriented, and they want to know the pulse of what business leaders have to say, because it's easier for them to work in conjunction with them and really change things that way. I'm very excited about Rick Blangiardi being in the mayor's office, and he brings such a great team with him. A lot of them very successful businessmen with their own practices that left that and came to the public sector out of a challenge to come back and serve.
Well, he was successful in his own right. He didn't have to come back to this. It sounded like it was a personal challenge of his, that this is something that he wanted for his love of Hawaii and thing. He wanted to get back into it and see if he could make a difference. And he's brought along some great folks, and hopefully we can put some things on the table again with his folks, team's ideas, and also other folks that we need to have at the table. All the stakeholders. But this is the intent of our Hawaii Boss podcast, is to be able to have folks come on here, share their experience, but also their perspective on the way forward, so that from their business experience they can say, well, this has worked for us, this hasn't worked for us in Hawaii, it would work better if we did this, this, again, just opening the dialogue, opening the conversation, so that we're it's just another channel for us, for all of Hawaii, particularly business professionals, to be able to not air their grievances, but say, here's the current challenges, here's what I'm really excelling at, and we all learn from each other in a good business environment.
Yeah, I like what you said with that, and learning from each other, right? It's so important. A lot of us, when we're in business, when things get tough, sometimes you feel like you're just a small ship in this vast ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, a lot of other businesses are going through the same thing. But what if we all work together? I mean, maybe those waves would not be as, wouldn't look as scary as they would if I was just in my little canoe, right? If I was in a big cruise ship with everybody else, we were secure, we were all talking, we were creating that dialogue, like you mentioned.
Well, yeah, the folks on Kauai had to do that. When they're saying, "Hey, come up to the North Shore," two competitors that normally competed for services and customers, they said, "Hey, let's bring them all. Let's join our resources and let's bring them all up here and let's see what we can do together." So once competitors may need to be friends now and share resources, or you have to sort of open your mindset a little bit and say, maybe this partnership could work. But of course, in competitive business market, you don't want to give away all your trade secrets and sell what your business idea is and someone else capitalize on that. So you do have to be careful that you're not sharing the trade secrets. But again, being open and honest about what we do and being an advocate for the type of business that you do makes perfect sense. Like the Restaurateurs Association or different, so that they can get their word and their sort of their vision and their what they need for their constituents, and then they can have a voice to the government, or to whatever thing that's happening in the economy out there. They have a larger voice when they get in these larger groups.
Well, that's exactly what it is, right? Nobody's saying you have to give away your trade secrets.
Right.
It's more of a partnership where you're working together and you guys are going to share those customers, you know?
That's sort of the idea of the Chamber of Commerce, where everyone gets together in the different, there's a Hawaii Chamber of Commerce, the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, different organizations have, a chamber based upon what their business, focus is, certain areas or things. And so, that is a great avenue for folks to be able to see what's going on and get a pulse for what's happening, and then be able to also raise their voice of concern or advocacy for whatever issue that might be there.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, those particular chambers that you just mentioned there, and then I know also the chambers in the neighbor islands, they provide such a great service, especially for those small businesses, that mom and pop business that perhaps doesn't have the connections, the know-how, but they still would like to run a business, It's so important to have somebody in your side, from the legislative side, from the part of just teaching you how to do business, from opening up a Facebook account, different things like that some of these businesses just had no idea of that they needed to do. And a lot of them had to accelerate that during the pandemic. I know of a friend of mine who owns he has a honey business, a bee with bees. And this guy was selling at farmers markets, and he was doing very, very well. Had a presence in a lot of farmers markets and other wellness markets. And after all that went away, he told me, he's like, I hated Instagram, but I needed to open an Instagram account because that was my only way to stay in contact with my customers. And we started a delivery service, a home delivery service, to make sure that we were able to supplement that and to keep our inventory low, because we had so much inventory at the time.
Right. Yeah, a lot of folks have started online businesses during this period and been very successful.
Right. And it's one of those, it's that mentality again of sink or swim, right? What are you going to do to keep your business going despite the greatest challenges? And as far as challenges, I think you would agree that this was quite a challenge that none of us were counting on.
Absolutely. And yeah, how do you come back from maybe, some folks have lost everything, and maybe they decide they want to come back and re-gear, retool, and say, here's how we're going to do business differently. So that's part of the conversation we want to have here too, is that we want to share those ideas of, what it takes to really kind of pick back up and talk about that, the toughness of being a leader in some challenging times, how to manage through some of the challenges of managing your people, but also regulatory issues and different things that confront the business owner every day. And so we're hopeful that, that this becomes that avenue and opportunity for good business people in Hawaii to be able to share that. And we know there's lots out there.
Right. I agree. I think there's that forum is needed for businesses here in Hawaii. I don't think there's enough of a place where we can all create a dialogue and get, tune into your show and catch a CEO and learn a story, or learn about his or her beginnings and how they really made headways and different things like that. It's important that we have some support as business owners, because again, sometimes we just feel we're all alone in this. And that's not the case. There's many, many resources that we can use, and people that can have been there that can guide us. And I think this show is important for that, because we are showcasing, yes, some of the most successful people in Hawaii, but I think also too, we will always have respect for that mom and pop or that small business owner who gets up every morning at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to them. We'd love to talk to them.
18-hour days. And those are the bosses. Those are the people who inspire those things. So,
they get up when everyone else is asleep, and they go and grind it out, and they go and do their business because it's their dream or whatever it is, it's their time. And we want to support that, because that's what's really going to bring it all back. There's, these big businesses have these big, maybe sometimes some of them have some big cash reserves and things like that. But these little small business guys, they're going check to check too. They're making sure that, the people that are paying them, their checks aren't bouncing, and hoping, crossing their fingers that, they're going to make it one week to the next. So, a lot of respect for these folks out there.
Yeah, and that's the people that I think about when the governor announced that today was going to be the day that we're actually going to start trying less restrictive measures. And because I know those people, it costs money to make money, and it costs more in a pandemic.
Sure.
Period. So it's a situation now where some of these smaller businesses will get that break to at least be able to start showing some in the black, and making sure that they're becoming whole again and not just losing money.
Right. And that's the challenge. We want to get everybody in black here and make sure that their business is going where it needs to. And that's why we're here at Hawaii Boss. And so you folks, hopefully down below, you guys can comment, let us know who you would like to have on the show, because we've got some great guests coming up. We can't tell everything about who's coming on, but
we can't reveal yet. That's going to be a surprise, David. That's going to be, but I'm so excited about it. I'm first of all, some of the guests that that some of the guests that we were going for, we were saying, well, it's a shot in the dark, and we'll see if it happens. And
right,
gosh, the response has been so great, and we're just so grateful to everyone. I mean, the guests, we're so grateful to them, but also the listeners who have been just constantly growing our numbers, and we're so grateful to that. We just want to say, stay tuned, because the best is yet to come. We are so excited about the show and what are the other things that are come, right? I mean, without revealing anything, right, David?
For sure. I mean, you just got to go in and log in. We're on YouTube, the Hawaii Boss Podcast. Just look up Hawaii Boss Podcast, whatever, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Yeah, we're all over the place. Yeah, we're all over the place, and if you need something, it's not a big, long thing. If you want a little bite-sized taste of, the Hawaii business atmosphere, what's happening from week to week, we're going to have some really great guests. So I'd like to thank our producer, Miguel, for his efforts as we've been trying to push this thing along. But and we've got Nolan in the background too. We've got some tech space that he's making things happen for us. So got a tight
podcast guru.
That's right. We've got a tight little team here, but we're excited about bringing what we're trying to do here to Hawaii and to you folks. And I hope you keep listening.
Yeah, and we just want to also just extend the invitation to people. If you know a boss, if you know somebody out there who's just behaving like a boss, working like a boss without even calling so much attention to her or himself,
right?
If you want to know about it, let us know. I mean, we're always looking for interesting folks from all walks of life, because I'm sure they have great stories to tell, and that's what we're here to do, tell those stories.
Yeah, put your nominations down in the comments. We'll take a look, and we read that seriously. If you guys put any comments down there, we love to hear those. And so let us know how things are going. If there's something else you want to talk about, if there's a certain type of an HR issue, or there's different things that you want to work about as far as business and budgets and things like that. We won't go over it too in depth. Budgets can be a little bit so, but different things that help a boss along, and we're excited to talk about those things.
Awesome.
All right, Miguel. Until next time, and to the Hawaii Boss podcast crew, aloha and hui hou.
Aloha.
Make sure to subscribe to Hawaii Boss and follow us on social media at Hawaii Boss Podcast at the links in the description. We'll see you soon in the boss's office.